This is the story of how I went from the bottom of the ladder to having people ask,
Those
Is
were
he him?
the
he
exact
him?
numbers we were looking for. That's crazy.
Is he that guy?
week after week, I would rack up losses at local tournaments. And not to exaggerate, but if I was a One Piece card, it would basically say, on play, your opponent wins. But that wasn't going to stop me from getting out there and having fun, which is why I entered the Egman Win-A-Box tournament last month. Little did I know though, I was about to have one of the craziest runs ever, all with a Shanks deck I built just a couple of days ago. The time for filler episodes was over. It's time for the main event. My last Eggman tournament, I did so poorly that I got tired and went off to bed halfway through. So I started off this tournament with literally nothing to lose. Round 1, I matched up against Enel, which has been giving me some trouble lately. I tried establishing some reduction potential early on with a building snake and Hongo, but he just played removal after removal, rendering my board emptier than my chances of bringing home a single win. Unfortunately, I had to take way too much of my life early on, which is something I try to avoid with Shanks, and ended up being down to my last 2 lives. The last one being a face side up building snake my opponent had put there. This is about as bad as a situation as I could be in. Literally minutes into the tournament. But then, the pieces started falling into place, and I believed in the heart of the cards. A top deck 8-cost Rayleigh gave me the foothold I needed to launch my counterattack, and seeing my 10-drop Shanks made my board go from nothing to scary. But would it be enough? My opponent did what almost every Enel player does at 10 Dawn, dropping a rush ace, and just like that, I was out of life cards. But taking that last life gave me something invaluable. I immediately used the power reduction of Building Snake, which helped me remove his big bodies. Then, I was able to solidify my attacking board with an 8-cost dragon. With some last minute radical beams to protect myself, I was able to muster enough swinging power to take down Enel and his pesky leader ability. Looking back on round 1, it felt like I just scraped through the match, teetering on the brink of defeat with no life. Little did I know, this was definitely a foreshadowing from the One Piece gods about how the rest of my matches were going to play out. Next up is a matchup I actually kind of liked, because a lot of people in my local scene play this leader. Hello, Purple Luffy. I feel like the key to this matchup is to focus 100% on controlling their board until the time comes to get aggressive. My starting hand didn't have a Beckman or Rayleigh removal like I wanted, so I mulliganed. And oh man, was that the wrong move. My new hand was bad. I mean, really bad. The one thing I do love about Shanks is how consistent he is. Unfortunately, this time around, it was consistently full of bricks. I couldn't really play anything until my 5 Dawn turn, so I did what any good Shanks player would do. 4 Dawn onto leader, swing for life. Without many options, I threw down a 5-cost Rayleigh blocker next turn, and started debating how I was going to survive long enough to turn this around. At this point, I take my first life and voila, an 8-cost Rayleigh. This really is the best card in the entire deck. I was in luck too because my opponent hadn't seen any Luffy Taros yet. We could still make this work. Sure, he has his 9-cost Luffy on the board, but there's still hope. And there's that Luffy Taro. With nothing but a Rayleigh protecting the battlegrounds against 4 opponent characters, I wasn't too hopeful. And to add insult to injury, all I could do on my first turn with 10 Dawn is Uda search. Somehow though, we got another Rayleigh on the board to remove some characters, and finally my 10 drop Shanks. And then boom, another one. Somehow I flipped the table and was gaining some momentum. Now, it was time to do my mental math and go for life. But just as I started my swings, this happened.
12, 13.
You got it? Yep. And back to you. No Dawn up. 4 cards in hand.
25th.
Hey guys, real quick.
Yep.
What's the power level of the useless kid?
Oh,
That's
crap.
Never have I been so embarrassed. My opponent didn't count the minus 1000 ability of my 10 drop Shanks and got a warning. I mean, I didn't even catch that, which just goes to show how little I've played this deck. I mean, I did build it like 48 hours ago. But no hard feelings, we move on. And we jump right back into things. It's time to go for life again. And then this happened.
Hey, once again, that law was a 4K swing.
That was. At this point, I don't really think it mattered. I was going to get it either way, so I didn't really want to say anything. But the match ended, and somehow I pulled out another win from a less than favorable situation. I'm just glad that everybody was so kind to me when I made such a silly mistake. It really shows you how nice the One Piece TCG community is. I barely survived the ramping monstrosity that is Luffy, and went right into my next round. Initially, I tried slowing down the momentum with a Lucky Rouge and a Beckman, but he got back-to-back Luffy Taros and built up a pretty big board. Without a Rayleigh in hand, I decided to do it the old-fashioned way. Drop a 10-drop Rush Shanks, and start swinging left and right. While it was enough in some ways, it wasn't in others, and he was able to take out my big body. At this point, I had to resort to some wacky tactics. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. But in the long run, it worked out. Kind of. Since Shanks was still relatively new to me, it took me longer to think out plays than a normal, well-practiced deck. We ended up going into overtime and then having that extra time actually run out. I wasn't quite sure what was supposed to happen, but it went to whoever had the most life, which thankfully was me. Even though it was a very rocky journey, I was happy that I was 3-0. I never really got this far in my local scene, so I was pretty jacked up. I remember telling my chat it didn't matter if we went on a losing streak now, because it was already so much better than I could have anticipated. Oh, round 3 me, you young naive boy. Just you wait. Ah yes, a fellow Shanks brother. The mirror match is finally upon us. I really do feel like winning the dice roll is a must in this matchup, as it really becomes a race to 10-drop Shanks. Thankfully, Lady Luck blessed me again, and I got to start second. Honestly, it was pretty even throughout the game. He plays a 5-cost ace, I play Beckman. He plays a dragon, I play a 10-drop Shanks. He plays a 10-drop Shanks. Look, you get the picture. Your typical Shanks mirror, as exciting as watching paint dry. At least it isn't as bad as the Dofy mirror matchup. Since I had priority to the 10 drops, I was able to maintain the upper hand, drop a Rayleigh for some reduction, and weaken his board enough to comfortably go for life, winning me my 4th game. With 2 life to spare and 2 0-cost events remaining in hand, that felt really smooth. But I also realized the roles could have very easily been reversed had I lost the dice roll. At this point, I'm kind of in disbelief. I've never won 4 matches in a row like, ever. And I got to admit, there was this little voice inside my head saying, hey, how crazy would it be if we won another match or 2? I could actually make the cutoff to get some prizing. Because let's be honest, I really wanted a set of those Egman dice. It's all about the little things in life. No matter how many times I played against Blackbeard on Sim, I don't think I won a single time. So when I popped up in round 5, I thought to myself, well, it was a heck of a run. And while we were shuffling, my opponent pops this question.
Are you comfortable with the matchup?
Yeah? I told him I practiced it a lot, which technically wasn't a lie. I just kind of left out the part about losing every single time. And just like that, round 5 was underway. I knew I wanted to keep a Beckman or 2 in hand to keep his Burgesses from sticking around too long. And lucky me, I had 2 in my starting hand. Feeling comfortable with that, I played an Uda Searcher to grab a 10-cost Shanks, and I have to admit, I was feeling good. Like I was getting in a groove. I saw a clear pathway on curve all the way to the top. I tried playing a Yasop, which didn't stick, and when I reached my 7 Dawn turn, I didn't have too many choices, as my opponent's board was still empty. I opted to play one of my Beckmans just to try and establish some bodies on the board, and he responded with the 2 Burgesses. Thankfully, I had another Beckman in hand, so I was able to trash one of them instantly. As the game progressed to my 10 Dawn turn, I played my Rush Shanks, and just like that, we started the top end battle of the 4 Emperors of OP09. As he responded with his 10 cost Blackbeard, I doubled down with a second Shanks, and you'll never believe what he did. Yep, that's right, another 10 cost Blackbeard. At this point, we were kind of in a power lock, both having 2 of our big bodies on the board, and ample life to spare. This stalemate clicked something in my mind, pushing every cell in my body to its limit, and I saw it. The gears finally lined up. How to use 110% of my brain, win this matchup, and finally beat a Blackbeard player. So I did the impossible, what nobody could have predicted. I played a third Shanks. I know. Big bodies, big bonk, but hey, it works. My opponent went full attack mode and swung big with his 10 drops, taking out 2 of my 3 Shanks cards. We went back and forth playing like this, big body after big body, taking one out and replacing it with another one. In the end, I was left with only 1 10 cost Shanks, but was able to take advantage of the opponent's small hand size and take the win. Holy smokes. I can't believe that just happened. I won, and against a Blackbeard to boot. I guess there is a first time for everything. After the match, my opponent wished me luck and told me to go all the way. And then it hit me. I was 1 win away from the finals. But I didn't have time to let that sink in. That last match took extremely long, so I had to go into my next round immediately, and you'll never guess who it was. Making it this far without playing the bane of my existence was kind of a miracle. But it's time to pay my dues and play against the dominating deck of the meta, Doflamingo. I was hoping I could find some lucky ruse and a 7 cost Whitebeard to help control Dofi's incredibly fast board building early on. But as I'm shuffling my deck with those thoughts in mind, I start to realize how tired I am, both mentally and physically. This tournament was happening on PST, while I was on Eastern time, so it was already well into the night, and the sleepiness was hitting hard. I also never played more than 4 matches in a row, so my decision making was starting to be impaired. But being a little Eepy wasn't going to stop me from giving it my all. He starts with back-to-back Sengoku searchers and then Jinbei into Boa. Ouch. All I have to respond to that is a Yasop, which is not ideal. But honestly, Shanks just can't match the speed of Dofi at this stage in the match. I was able to throw down a Beckman and remove his Boa, helping board control a little bit, but he just responded with another Jinbei and Boa. Ah, Dofi, how I love you so. I finally saw a Rayleigh and did some damage control, but it wasn't enough. Dofi just had too much momentum. Swing after swing, he took my life, until I was left with nothing. 1 more attack, and my run was over. Knowing he could have a perfumed femur in hand, I went into my next turn knowing it was going to be my last. So, there was only one option. Swing for the stars. I attach 1 Dawn to Yasop and swing 7 at lead. To my surprise, he takes it, so I drop a dragon, add 2 rested Dawn to my leader, and swing again. Another life taken. Wait a second. Does he just have bricks in his hand? Is this all-in last resort desperate attack actually have a chance of working? At this point, my opponent has 1 life left with 1 Boa blocker up, with plenty of cards in hand. The chances were slim, but not 0. I attach 1 to Beckman and swing for 8. Another life taken. I swing 8 for Rayleigh. He blocks with Boa. What is happening? happening? Surely he has 4K counter in hand, right? That's all he needs. He literally has so many cards. I swing with my last attacker, 8K from Dragon into life. And then my heart sinks. He starts putting down counter. But wait, that's only 3K, not 4. The attack went through. I won. Oh my gosh, I won.
9? Yeah, I guess so. 8, 8, 9.
Yeah. 8.
Okay.
Okay, what is going on?
8. Can they 2K out?
Blocked.
Blocked.
Oh
2K, 1K. Can't do it.
my
Crazy.
gosh.
Crazy, crazy. Those
Is
were
he him?
the
Is he
exact
him?
numbers we were looking for. That's crazy.
Is he that guy?
This Shanks
Alright.
player continuing to just, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna
Defy
use
the odds.
Defy the odds. That's a great.
Defy
that's a
the
great
odds,
way- That's a
baby.
great way to say it.
And just like that, I was in the finals. I was overwhelmed with joy, still not fully believing how I got here in the first place. But game after game, I somehow made it through. My phone was blowing up with texts from friends at my local scene, and chat was absolutely popping off. Now, win or lose, it's time for the last match of the night. Mentally exhausted and way past my bedtime, I entered the match and was once again faced with a blue Doflamingo. I have to say, I'm pretty proud of myself for saving the viewers of this tournament from another finals with a Dofi mirror matchup. I won the dice roll, which was a great way to start, and then was faced with the choice of going first or second. Obviously, I wanted to go first in order to keep Dofi from the one-turn searcher, but it took my mind way too long to get there. At this moment, I realized a sad truth. I am gassed. My brain was barely functioning anymore, and I'm losing focus by the minute. But it's now or never. With words of encouragement from everyone, I picked up my hand, and I was not thrilled. I don't really have much to say with nothing but 2Ks and a top end in hand, so I swung 8K into lead and bid my time. My opponent played a Perona followed by a Boa Hancock, and I sighed some relief that he didn't see a Jinbei. At my 5 Dawn turn, however, I still had nothing else to do but play an Uda Searcher to grab the 10 cost Shanks, and go 9K into life with my leader. Not great. I would have killed for a Lucky Rouge, but everyone could tell both players were not starting the way they would like. Even on my 7 Dawn turn, all I could do was play a Hongo and then swing with my leader and Uda Searcher. What I wouldn't have given for a Beckman. If I could just hold on for one more turn, I could start dropping the Rayleigh and Shanks and finally begin doing something. Somehow not seeing a Jinbei on my opponent's board up to this point was saving my bacon, and I saw a window of chance. But then, it happened. My opponent hit me with the pudding, and just like that, I shuffled away my top end, my keys to victory. To tell you how bad of a hand I ended up having after I redrew, on my 10 Dawn turn, all I could do was Uda search to try and find something to win me this game. But with 1 life left, it finally sank in. It was over. There was no way out of this one, and he finished me off with a 15K attack to lead. I had a huge board compared to his empty field, but it was simply too little, too late. I finished my Egman tournament run with a 6-1 record, finishing 5th overall in the rankings. This was, without a doubt, one of the most fun experiences I have ever had in the One Piece TCG scene. And shout out to Hayden the Eggman for putting it on. However, I can't help but leave a little bit disappointed. With no expectations going in, I had made it so very close to the end, only to fall short. And just like that, the sun begins to set on this epic tournament run. Yet, there is one last lingering question in my mind. Was this all a fluke? Or is Shanks the kind of deck I needed to finally throw my hat in the competitive ring? I don't really know, but we'll find out together. Until next time.